When I was ready for ordination and people kept asking me what I was going to do, I kept saying, I don't know. It doesn't exist yet. It doesn't exist. It's going to be um, unorthodox. It's not something that I can point to and say, that's how it's done. And interestingly enough, that's kind of what happened. In addition to doing the meditation and mindfulness resources, I found my way to being a keeper of the flame. What is that? It's because I was on this spiritual path and working in these arenas and connecting through my ministerial connections that I found that I had this other gift of, well, I discovered in seminary what it was called because I grew up as an empath, but I didn't know what it was called and I didn't know why I was reacting and responding to people and feeling what they were feeling and not knowing the difference between what was mine and what was theirs. I discovered that in seminary and found out what it was called, and then was able to use that to hold space, to clear energy. That came out, that's an extension of my meditation, mindfulness practice and teaching.
Hi, my name is Senka Caro, and I'm founder of LightNet. And my passion and purpose is removing the word impossible from the dictionary. We are here today with Paulette Pipe. She is the founder of Touching the Stillness, and she's an incredible meditation leader and sacred space holder. And she's also a unity minister. She is the keeper of the flame for the Holomovement. What is this, you ask? Well, I think that it's the secret special sauce of the whole movement. One of the things she does is she opens and closes every meeting and gathering. And she does that by dropping us into whatever is coming up for us. And she lifts us like an elevator up to our highest potential, where everything seems to flow in ease and grace. So she's the ultimate flow master. She's been a guide on Insight Timer and other apps, and she's absolutely incredible. Meet Paulette.
My purpose is to create environments, provide resources and activities that allow people to touch the stillness, which is also the name of my organization, but it's no accident. It's about finding stillness beyond all the noise and having the resources for meditation, mindfulness, and spiritual practice. And adjunct to that is using my own gifts, which I discovered along the way, to hold sacred space for organizations and individuals. What actually happened to bring me to my purpose is quite a story. Um, I didn't know what meditation really was when I was 29 years old, but my brother died suddenly, and I was just bereft. It was unexpected. He was like the linchpin of our family. And at the time, I was a journalist. And at his funeral, people were saying all these wonderful things about him and how he had impacted their life. And I thought, if I die today, I don't want to be known for writing about changing hemlines because I was in the fashion industry at the time. So it sent me on a quest. And it just so happened that a friend of ours had moved from London to America. And when I told her the news of my brother's death, she invited me over to come and spend Christmas with her to support me because I was so bereft from my brother's death that I was off work for about 3 months with deep depression. So she said, come over to America and it'll be a change of scene for you. And she took me to this, when I got there, she took me to this organization called Unity, or at least they were a Unity organization, but not in our association, but they were practicing Unity teachings and principles. And part of that was the practice of meditation. And I was so enamored by this thing that I would just keep going back to New York. Every opportunity I had, every vacation I had, I'd go back to New York so I could experience this thing that they did in the Sunday service. And then eventually it got very expensive. So I did some research to find a local branch closer to me, maybe in Europe. But when I did that research, I found that there was an organization that met right in Victoria, so about 45 minutes from my house on a good day with London transport. And what really drew me in is in that organization, it wasn't quite as jazzy and fun as the organization I was going to in New York. And if I had gone there first, I probably never would have gone back. But what kept me coming back was 30 minutes before their service, they would have this gathering and do meditation. And there was something about it that just resonated with me, and I couldn't really put my finger on it. And I never did it at home by myself. I would just wait until Sundays. And then one Sunday, the leader, the facilitator of the meditation said she was going away for a month and that the minister was looking for someone to take over in her absence. It was as if something spiraled in my soul and just jerked me out of my chair. And I went up to the minister after the practice and said, I can do that. Yet I had never tried it personally, never done it at home. And I always say, my soul knew. It turned out to be one of my spiritual gifts, and that's how I bumped into it. I started going to this Sunday organization meeting every Sunday. As I said, it wasn't as jazzy as the one I was visiting in New York, but there was something about the meditation practice. And so I went home and I practiced by myself, and I would go to the Sunday experience for 30 minutes before the service every week. And eventually there was a group that met at my house, and the facilitator of the group was a licensed teacher, and she would ask me to lead the meditation. And every week I'd be surprised that she was asking me out of this entire group, and I was never prepared. I had nothing written. But as soon as I opened my mouth, magic would come forth, surprising us all. And over the years, there was a change in the vibration of my voice, so much so that even my family members commented on it because they grew up with me. My brothers and sisters grew up with me, but it wasn't something we did as a family. So they could tell the difference in my voice as I meditated more and experienced more elongated times in silence. And so I would just sometimes I would go to the organization on a Sunday, and the minister would just call me forth and say, Paulette, will you lead the meditation? And I'd have to be extemporaneous because I hadn't practiced and I hadn't prepared and I hadn't and didn't have anything written, and I could get up and do it. So today I say, give me a microphone and just give me a microphone and I can step into that zone and let the energy and let the energy of spirit, the divine, just flow through me. I believe that when we're in our purpose, we do move into a zone of some kind. We are one mind, one pointed in our focus. And there's something, I believe, there's something familiar about what it is that's called us forth. I have a personal belief that we come in with this imprint, with this sacred assignment. We might forget along the way, but something clicks and wakes us up to that purpose. I mentioned that I was a journalist, and when I was a young child, and I turned to feature writing more than news reporting because I could tell the story and do the background. And as a child, that used to be my playtime. I would take normal children's stories and create a different ending. Like what would have happened if the fox hadn't eaten the gingerbread? What would have happened to Cinderella if she hadn't met the prince? I'd write these different endings for the story. And that kind of triggered my interest in journalism. And I always wanted to know how the story ended. Okay, so I veered off from that. That wasn't my main purpose for being on the planet, but it works for me. It integrates into the things I'm doing. There was something familiar in my soul that knew about writing and storytelling. The same thing happened with the meditation when I heard the first meditation when I went to Unity London and was engaged in those 30-minute pre-service experiences. And so I feel that I'm not alone in that, that there's something that awakens in us, even if we don't come in we don't wake up the first day, we don't go to school knowing, oh, I'm going to be a violinist, or I'm going to be a scientist, or I'm really interested in electronics and engineering. The kids are dabbling and breaking things apart and trying to build them back together. There's something there, I believe, and it just awakens in us. And when we are doing what we are here to do, it's easier to move into the zone. You're going to have creative challenges, you're going to have opportunities to grow and expand and excel in your craft. But there's a knowing that just takes you into the zone and you expand and love it from there, I believe. So I have a friend who has this amazing gift where if you're speaking to her, you're troubled or challenged and you're speaking with her, she'll get this insight for a song, a movie, a poem, some postcard. It'll just come along her path and it's exactly what you need to hear. The words are perfect and she'll just send it to you without knowing why she's being called to do that. And yet she moves through the world believing she has not found her purpose. She doesn't know what it is because she expects it to be something huge and big and life changing. And it is life changing. It's just not something she assumes it's not that because it comes really easily to her and she knows it has an impact on the people that she's sending it to or sharing it with because they say so. But it's not changing the world in her mind in the way that she feels that she should be showing up and changing the world. But you could be a mother. You could be working at the grocery store and making eye contact and smiling and having a conversation with someone at the checkout. And that can be your purpose, but it doesn't feel like that because we all think it has to be something so huge and life changing that will, I keep saying that, but it is life changing to someone. Have you heard of the story about the Golden Bridge? It's been known that people go there to commit suicide, right? And there's a story about a young man who was contemplating suicide and he was standing on the bridge and a couple came over to him and asked to take their picture. They didn't acknowledge him, they didn't say hello or anything, they just shoved the camera in his face and said, would you take our picture? He took the picture and then jumped. And he's one of the very few people to have survived. And he tells the story that even if they had just acknowledged and smiled at him, it would have made a difference that day. What if that was someone's life purpose to just smile and make eye contact on that day in that one incident? What if it wasn't something that was just ongoing all the time, but they made a difference and he changed his mind? And maybe he had something he was supposed to do in his life that was purposeful, that would make a difference, and he would have lived to share it. Well, he did because he survived the fall and now he's living his purpose in a different way. So what if it's just an instant thing? It's not something that's ongoing. I just put that out there as an alternative thought. The hardest part of living my purpose is that I had to unpack it from something else. And what I mean by that is I was called to ministry to serve as a minister. And I was the most resistant and reluctant. Before I even responded to my inner calling, people kept asking me if I'm going to be a minister, and it was offensive to me. It wasn't it, it was not a compliment because I had grown up seeing ministers and pulpit ministers perform and show up in a certain way, and I didn't see myself like that. I was too cool to be considered a minister. And I'm talking, 30, 35 years ago. It was quite a while ago. So when I eventually answered the call and went to seminary, I even tried to persuade them not to let me in by telling them, I don't want a church. I don't see myself in a pulpit. I don't know why this is coming to me. It's not mine to do. And they let me in anyway. And I'm really glad they did because it's been in that environment that I was able to even hone my craft more. But I nearly stopped myself because it was couched in ministry. But like I say, I was able to practice my craft and evolve in my consciousness and my understanding, the vibration of what I was, the vibration around what I was offering, amplified and heightened out of that environment. But I would have said no if it was just through the doorway, the gateway of ministry. I was ordained in 2001, and I've never served in a pulpit and never had to, and still don't have, and still say no to that calling. But I'm out here serving in a different way, making meditation, mindfulness, and spiritual practices available, particularly to people who think they can't meditate or that they don't meditate. And I'm able to share and show ways, all the different forms that there are to meditate, and even show that some of the things that you're doing can be a gateway to stillness and silence, like dancing or gardening or practices that take you into the zone. So you're active, you're doing something, you zone out, you're really one pointedly focused, mindful, and then you come to stillness when you just stop and pause. And so people think there's only one way to meditate, but I was able to increase my repertoire and provide different examples of how you can meditate. So so in terms of what was difficult about it, it was recognizing the doorway that was leading me to it and saying yes to that. When I was ready for ordination and people kept asking me what I was going to do, I kept saying, I don't know. It doesn't exist yet. It doesn't exist. It's going to be um, unorthodox. It's not something that I can point to and say, that's how it's done. And interestingly enough, that's kind of what happened. In addition to doing the meditation and mindfulness resources, I found my way to being a keeper of the flame. What is that? It's because I was on this spiritual path and working in these arenas and connecting through my ministerial connections that I found that I had this other gift of, well, I discovered in seminary what it was called because I grew up as an empath, but I didn't know what it was called and I didn't know why I was reacting and responding to people and feeling what they were feeling and not knowing the difference between what was mine and what was theirs. I discovered that in seminary and found out what it was called, and then was able to use that to hold space, to clear energy. That came out, that's an extension of my meditation, mindfulness practice and teaching. So a passion around my passion is um, a passion around my passion came out of that time in seminary too, because I ended up as a retreat facilitator. That's the road I took originally when I was ordained. And then I came back to the US. I was invited to take a job here in the US at our headquarters to run their retreat department. And it took so long for me to get here that by the time I got here, the job had changed. And I was unhappy because I was not serving and sharing my gifts in the way I know how to, in the way that brings me joy and fulfillment. And one day we were in an employee meeting and they said they were about to launch an online radio station. And I was like, what's that? What's that? How does that work? And I kept asking everybody about it and I couldn't get an answer. But you remember how I said when I first heard the meditation and the facilitator was leaving to go away and my spirit moved me? Same thing happened again. So I was asking all these questions, and eventually I ended up on the Unity Online radio station with a podcast. And I kid you not, my show was on a Tuesday at 11 o'clock. On Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, I was down in the dumps at my desk, doing my job, but not loving it. But on a Tuesday, I would light up like a firecracker because I loved my show. I loved creating it. I loved the examples I could bring to the audience because it was about meditation and mindfulness practices. And then I would lead a meditation on air, and I would also take prayer and affirmative prayer intentions and pray affirmatively online. I would just light up, so much so that in the end, after about a year, I gave up my job. I gave up my salary and my benefits and went and did it for free, just so I could be in my passion, in my purpose, alive and joyful more of the time, not just on Tuesdays. And that was an example of how my passion was in a passion within, there was a passion within the passion. It was over at a weekend where I kept hearing this song in my head previously, "What would I do today if I were brave?" And on that weekend, I said, "Let me just stop and journal on that question because there's something here." And I was fantasizing about going in, giving up my job and stepping away. And I would work for the divine. That would be the divine, the universe would be my paymaster, my benefactor, and I would just do things for free and I would have nothing to worry about. And then on Monday I went in and made an appointment with my manager to see her without not know without really knowing why I wanted to see her. I mean, I didn't know I wasn't quite sure why I was asking for the meeting. And then I went in and I was just giggling. She's like, What?" It's like, and then I said what I had written in my journal. Thank you for allowing me this opportunity to serve, but it's time to step away. And without planning it, I went in and resigned. I had no plan B. I didn't have a savings account. I didn't have a trust fund. I didn't have my sister's couch to go sleep on if this didn't work out. But if I had stopped and thought about those logistics and how to pay my way through the world, I would never have done it. And I went out in the world. And even today, I have never earned the salary that I earned 14 years ago. I never caught up with it. And sometimes my tax preparer asks me, how do you live based on the revenue that I generate through this ministry? And I actually had a tagline for my ministry, Touching the Stillness, Audacious, Bold, and Courageous, Tithing, Thriving Ministry. And I kept saying it and affirming it. And I would receive my income 11th hour, whatever I need. It was manna for the day. It was never more than I needed. It's not surplus put away to keep my mind and heart in content and like, I got this. I know how I'm going to manage. It's been a faith walk. And it's even fueled my passion because I love it so much. They say, do what you love and the money will come. I do what I love. I'm passionate about it. And I'm thriving by my standards, maybe not by society standards, but I'm thriving because I'm living on purpose with passion. I care about stillness because I have found it to be the gateway that allows me to touch the hem of the garment, as it says in the Bible with the woman who was healed by Jesus. She just touched his hem and the healing moved through her. So, metaphorically, it's the place where we can be grounded. It's the place where we can connect with universal spirit. It's the place where we heighten our intuition. It's the place where we are open and receptive and responsive to the wisdom flowing in from the universe and for the courage to step forth from that place of stillness and do what is ours to do and act how it is ours to act. It's an incubator. It's a power source. It's like plugging yourself in, filling yourself up, and stepping forth from that place. It means so much to me, and um, and I love that there are many ways to get to it, and that's what my passion and purpose is about: is showing the many avenues to get to it. Because I am fervently convinced that when we stop and we breathe and we rest and we allow the mind to quieten down, we are actually amplifying our energy and our vibration to do what is ours to do in the world. And maybe if more of us were still more of the time, that's where we'd get the answer to the very question we started this whole thing with. What is my passion and how do I find it? Maybe take some time to be still. The advice for if you're searching for your passion, and I know you've probably heard this before from others, is look at what brings you joy right now. What comes easily to you and brings you joy. For example, my friend, it brings her joy. She's good at it. She doesn't have to think about it. She just sees something, hears something, and shares it. But if she was able to embrace the idea that that is enough because she is enough, and that would be the same for all of us. What is it you're already filled with joy, content, you move into the zone with? It may not be immediately obvious, or we might start down a road and we might not see where it's taking us, because I started in retreats. That's not my purpose or my passion. I'm good at it and it's part of my repertoire. But the nugget was in leading, facilitating meditation and mindfulness. The nugget was creating a space to use my gifts as an empath, as someone who works with energy, to hold sacred space and work with the energy in the space. My passion for podcasting that I had for 10 years came out of that. So we start where we are. I'm still storytelling. Even now, I'm storytelling right here. So those are things that you can tap into, play around with, see how it feels, try it on. And just taking that first step might open the door, point you in a different direction, point you in the right direction, just by being aware of what it is that fills you with joy, peace, and has you in the zone more often than not. I'm not always aware of the impact that I'm having. I know what's happening to and through me when I'm in my purpose, when I'm serving and sharing from that place. There is a physical, emotional, and energetic change, impact, effect happening through me. But I'm not always aware. I'm obviously, because I'm working with energy, I'm aware what's happening in the environment, but I'm not always aware what individual impact that's having unless someone shares it. And every time they do, it catches me off guard, because what I know to be true is that it's not me, it's not my personal small ego self. It is definitely having created a capacity, a space, an opening through which spirit, universe, mind, God, source, whatever you want to call it, can flow. So I'm in awe. And sometimes, even when I come out of a meditation or have been holding space, I'm shaking or I'm having a response to what just happened. I I remember one time I was serving as the keeper of the flame at a annual general meeting for the Unity Worldwide Ministries organization, and there had just been an incident on the news, and so we broke the meeting because they asked me to stop and hold space, stop what I was doing as holding space, and bring us into coherence with a prayer. And I stepped into that and I said the prayer. And when I finished, the room was silent. You could hear a pin drop. And the energy that was resonating there was palpable and powerful. And I was crying and they were crying, but I have no idea what I said in the prayer because it came from that place within. And I had to go and watch a recording to see what happened and why did we all respond like that. And even as I watched the video back, I cried again, watching myself. And the same thing happened when I first recorded my very first CD and I was sent the master file to review. I was weeping, listening to my own voice, not as, pride, look what I did, tap, tap. It was like I had stepped out of myself and I'm listening to what came through me for the first time. So if I'm having that impact, I can only imagine how other people are responding, but I never take it for granted and I never assume. But if someone feeds back, I take them at their word. What the world would be like if we were all living in purpose? It's probably what some people would call utopia, because we would be showing up with each other so differently, how we interact, how we communicate, how we share resources, how we support and heal. The world would look so different, sound different, feel different. Our collective purpose will have changed. Our entire collective purpose for being on the planet will have changed if we are all living on purpose. And the peace for all, the world that works for all, the amplification of our creative gifts, the way we live in union with plants, animals, sea, ocean, air, the way we treat children, all of that would be different. I wonder if we'd be wondering, then why are we here? If it's already working, why did we come? I love these rhetorical questions. I keep asking them. We're not going to just find our purpose and stay there, because life changes and we're not linear. So we're going to keep evolving. The passion, the purpose is going to keep evolving. The calling on our heart is going to be amplified as we remember more and more with each and every day why we're here, why we came, and what is ours to contribute. So take that first step if you just have an inkling, or as I said before, something that brings you joy, something that's got your focus. Just dabble with that and see where it leads. And then if you feel like, oh, I found my purpose, this is what I'm here to do, be open to the possibility that yes, and there might be more too. Because until we come into collective cohesion with unity and oneness with all, there will always be more room and space to grow as we live and share our passions in the world. It's time to bring the gifts.